Ken. Thanks for joining. God always uses you as somebody who encourages me because I feel like you're definitely somebody who like lights up when, whether it's somebody approaching you or you just see somebody wanting to grow deeper and more serious about their faith in Jesus. And I think you would join me in saying that it's so cool to see so many people in our crew like ready, and not only ready, but like hungry, seeking for Jesus to challenge them, saying like, I'm hungry to know you more, please provide that. And even the Sermon on the Mount does provide that. And that was the attitude of the disciples in that. And in this passage that we read this past Wednesday, we see Jesus addressing the topic of lust. And from what the whole Bible says, or even if it's from like your own God-given experiences that he's like navigated you through, what makes lust like a particularly dangerous or maybe even unique thing when it comes to like the damaging effects it has on like us being salt and light to the world?
Absolutely. So lust is a very unique sin in many ways, but one of them being how shameful it is. Any time that any sin is really brought up in a small group lesson, if someone says, oh, who's lied before? Everyone will put their hand up. Or who has coveted something? They'll put their hand up. Who's been angry at someone? You'll put your hand up. And this is something that's a lot more private, that's a lot more, or that feels a lot more embarrassing, and that this is a lot more shameful. And that is very specifically a tool that Satan uses to get after us. This is a sin that absolutely feels all-encompassing. It just darkens you, and it pushes you in a corner, and it just makes you feel very, very alone. And not only that, but it's a different kind of sin. It's a lot more invested. It can do a lot more of changing your brain. This is a physical reaction to things, and this can actively lead to worse and worse things. Not that all sin will lead to, like, all sin escalates, but lust specifically is something that is built to be addictive, and if not used, or lust can never be used correctly, but if not controlled and if not looked after, can absolutely grow into something that is just a mess, and that is not impossible to contain, because through God all things are possible, but on our own we can't stop it.
Yeah, and even highlighting that it is at least a taboo of like shamefulness, a special shameful. Like, of course there should be like guilt for sin and stuff like that, but yeah, like you said, like we have no trouble confronting the guilt of like lying or whatever, anything like that. But yeah, and even like you highlighted, it's been said that sin grows best in the dark, and there is a lot of truth to that. And especially when it comes to pornography or lust, it's very embarrassing sins. What is something that you wish, though, that you could even like right now go back in time, grab high school Tennessee by the sides of his face and like tell him or challenge him with specifically on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was talking with the guys today, at the very beginning, we kind of just said like, hey, we're talking about lust and pornography. And you kind of see the room shift, kind of a whole like quiet goes over the room. And when I was talking to them, I kind of went very like bluntly like, hey, that little pit in your stomach that you felt, that little nervousness that you felt when that was said, like I felt that too. Like I know you felt that. And it's not okay. Like this sin is not okay. But I want you in like high school Tennessee especially to know, hey, like you are not alone. Like, when I was in high school, I very specifically felt that I was the only one that struggled with this, that, hey, I'm the only one that's messed up. Everyone else out there is not dealing with this. This isn't a problem for them. I'm the only one that's gross. I'm the only one that has a problem with this. Well, that's just simply not true. We looked at stats today, and I don't have them pulled up. I think it's 73% of teenagers admit to have looked at pornography in the past 30 days. That's a huge statistic. The average age of exposure is 12. If you haven't seen it at this point, it's going to be a problem with just how accessible it is and with how all-encompassing the internet is. So with that, like talking to young Tennessee or talking to current students, like, hey, you are not look at the camera. You are not alone in this. Like, this is something that everyone deals with. This is a problem. This is something that is like natural to us to be attracted to things. But with that, you need to tell people. Like, you need to talk to someone if you have a problem with this. And I or your other leaders aren't going to think less of you because you are wanting to come to us for help. We're excited that you want help in this. We're excited that you want to grow and to like grow closer to the Lord and push this sin away.
Yeah. And we even talked about like the greatest tricks of the devil is convincing you that he doesn't exist and that you are alone, because it's like a lion. He's seeking the isolated, the vulnerable one. But what Jesus tells us in Matthew 5 is probably a passage that most of us are familiar with. He says, if this is a problem for you, if lust specifically is a problem, then pluck out your eye. And then he continues and he's like, if your hand is causing you to sin, cut off your hand. And most people take that kind of like in jest, like it's clearly an exaggerated metaphor, right? Like he's not actually telling. I do agree that it is a like exaggeration, because, or even a metaphor, because that's not taking it far enough, right? Like if you pluck out your eye, cut off your hand, you do pluck out both eyes, cut off both hands, you can still act on lust from whatever, I don't know. He's clearly identifying that the problem is our hearts and that drastic measures have to be taken in order to take this seriously. So what would be your challenge or encouragement or anything like that to our group, particularly on how to practically take this seriously?
Yeah, so my challenge would be like, hey, like, one, talk to someone. Like that last thing that I said about like going to a leader, that we're not going to shame you for this, that is 100% true. That like we want to help you with anything, but this specifically is a sin that very much benefits from someone being in your corner. Like every sin, it's better to have someone helping you and to be like fighting with you that you can confide in, someone that's the same gender as you, someone that's older, someone that's like biblically wise, but someone that can get behind you and that you can reach out to, that can reach out to you and that can help you with this, that can at least call you out when you do something wrong and like celebrate when you do something right. Another big thing is like, hey, the cut off your hand, like the pluck out your eye, it is a bit of a metaphor. It is, like you said earlier today, like if you pluck out one eye, the other eye can still lust. But like it is big steps. Like, hey, if Instagram causes you to sin, delete Instagram. Yeah. If your phone causes you to sin, get rid of your phone. If you can't have internet access on your phone, maybe turn it off. Maybe leave your phone in another room when you're going to sleep. Like if you cannot handle those things, like then get rid of them. Maybe there's certain apps you can't have on your phone. Maybe there's certain TV shows or songs you can't listen to. But God calls us to make those drastic changes, make those drastic changes. My other thing would be is like one of the biggest things that I ever heard was like, hey, you don't have to not struggle with lust for the rest of your life. That's not your goal right now. Your goal is to do not lust today. Don't lust this hour. Like if you look at your whole life as I'm not going to struggle with this ever again, that's daunting. That is a big task. And this is a lifelong battle. This is not something that's going to go away once you just admit there's a problem. This is going to be something that you struggle with. But don't look at it as the rest of my life I'm not going to do this. Look at it as I'm not going to do this today. I'm not going to do this hour. I'm not going to do this right now. Like that's going to be the best way to beat this. And pray about it and go to people. And that would be my challenge.
Yeah. And like whatever conviction that we're meant to take that seriously, because the longer that we put off conviction is going to widen the gap of our closeness with God, and even make it more difficult to face that. So we can end with just the last thing. If you had any else that was weighing on your heart that you wanted to share, any words of encouragement, anything like that to leave us with?
This is, a lot of what I talked about today with the guys was very like practical information, that this is a very like common thing, that this is something that is very accessible. I challenge you all to do some research. There's various these aren't Christian organizations, but there's things called the Exodus Project and Fight the New Drug that kind of talk about the non-spiritual harmful effects of porn, things like trafficking or things like the mental health side of pornography. So one, the spiritual side should be the big reason that we're doing all this, but if you want other reasons, they do a very good job and have very good, I'm going to say secular, but not in a bad way, secular like information on this. I also would challenge you to look up resources. On every iPhone there is a parental lock or an adult content like limit that you can put on that. That makes it really hard to research for these kind of things, by the way, because it blocks any site that has any word, even if it's just for research purposes. That being said, like look up, I think Jason mentioned something called Covenant Eyes and things that can put blocks on your phone. So yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Tim. I appreciate your time.
No problem. I don't know if Pastor Adam's real. I think he's made up.